but I have a pretty good idea of what it is. It's a globalist agenda to build world government based on the model of collectivism, but using as the engine for motivating it concern over the environment. See, they use different things to scare people into giving up their liberties and to accepting big, powerful government. It does not just the environment. I mean, the war on terror, the war on drugs, the war on pornography, whatever it is you're afraid of, they will use it. And that's not to say that you have no reason to be afraid of it, but they will find whatever people are concerned about, and they'll play that up as a point of focus, and they say, so what are we going to do about it? Well, what we need, obviously, is more government to control these things and to intervene, and that means taking away more of your personal liberties. And we say, oh, that's good, but just protect us from these things. So basically, that's the framework into which Agenda 21 fits. It's concern over the global environment, but really it's a blueprint for the development of global management of the environment, meaning global management over industry and people, which means the loss of your freedom. So it fits into the general pattern in that sense. When you live in the big cities, it's easy to become convinced that the world is overpopulated. Certainly the cities are. And a lot of us have this great desire to get out of the cities and into the country and so forth. And we forget that the great, vast surface of the earth is not overpopulated at all. There's practically nobody there. Cities are overpopulated. But nevertheless, the theory is that if we don't put some kind of, notice, if we don't put some kind of control on population, they never assume that that can take care of itself. It's got, we have to do it. We, the wise ones. We, the controllers. We, the elitists. We who have been to school. We who have looked at the statistics. We who are going to run the world. We are going to control population. That's always the implied message there. They say if we don't put a brake on population, well, then it's just going to keep growing and growing until finally the planet will be covered with a solid mass of human flesh. Well, I don't believe that at all. I think that's a scare tactic. We know, for example, that in the last 10, 12 years, America and most of the Western advanced countries and some of the European countries with a higher level of education, the population is actually decreasing. They don't publish that because it doesn't fit the image of this greatly expanding mass of human flesh. But still, in third world countries, it's true. Population is increasing. And even though the population of the United States might be increasing, it's not because of the birth rate. It's because of immigration. But nobody talks about that because it doesn't fit the scare story, you see. So I believe that the human species has the ability to limit its own population without exterminating people, without birth control administered by the state, with coercion, you know. I think when the politicians and the government get into things like this, it's destined to be not only a horrible failure, but a terrible destruction of human dignity and human freedom. So what more can I say on population control? The elitists who want more control over our lives use that, like they use environment and everything else, terrorism, to scare us into giving them more power. Now, in this case, what's the power? Power over who can have children? Wow, what power that is. If they don't like your political views, they could easily say, well, you're not allowed to propagate. If they don't like your race, they say, well, you're not allowed to propagate. If they don't like your gender, even, they could say you're not allowed to populate. They do that in China right now. So all of these things are possible, and they use this fear of overpopulation, in my opinion, based on very faulty science, but they use that as a means of expanding their control and taking away more of our liberties. That the IPCC report from the United Nations creating this mythological threat of global warming and global environmental destruction because of greenhouse gases and all of this stuff, is another example of flawed science, more than flawed science. It's corrupted science, being used to justify an agenda for expanded government, in this case, expanded international government. Well, I guess if I were to say a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, if I were to ask the average person of my acquaintance, and many of those people do not agree with my ideological orientation because they don't really have an ideological orientation at all. They're just people you run into, in the restaurants and the bank and so forth. If I were to ask them what they thought about global warming, they'd say, "Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? I mean, the planet's going to die, isn't it? And we got to do something about it, don't we?" And so forth. Now, it's clearly people are saying, "Well, that's a joke. There's no global warming going on. Just a bunch of politicians trying to dream up some excuse to have a global tax, and they got it. Why? Well, because gradually the science, the true science, is leaking out, getting around all of the gatekeepers, and is breaking through the mass media. And also they can look out their window and see that global warming is not happening, but in fact temperatures are going down, and globally. Average temperatures are going down. And now they realize that global warming is a very real thing, and it's unstoppable. And it happens over and over again throughout the long term of history. Every couple of thousand years there's a cycle of global warming. It's real, but it's not caused by man. And you can look out in the solar system and you see that they've been measuring global warming going up on some of the other planets, Mars and Venus. Well, there are no man-made gases out there. Why? Because of solar flares and solar activities. And the solar activity is a cyclical thing in nature, and every time the flares increase, the whole solar system warms up. And then the flares contract again, and the whole solar system cools down, which is what we're going through now. So people are beginning to get this, but nevertheless, the engine for totalitarian control just moves ahead as though none of this made any difference. Mr. Gore just denies, completely flatly denies. He is the denier. He calls people who reject global warming as the deniers. But he, in fact, and his group, who are pushing this myth of global warming, they're the true deniers of reality. And they just keep pushing for more laws, and they want acceptance, international acceptance of their draconian expansion of laws and taxing power now and taking money from this nation and giving to that nation, all in the name of global warming, which is what they wanted to do anyway, but now this is a good excuse for it. And they just keep going as though this scientific evidence didn't exist. And I wandered a little bit from the main topic here, but to me that is the crucial element to understand, and that is that the people who are pushing for this great growth of government, both nationally and internationally, don't care what the truth is. They do not care what the people believe. They're completely above that now. They say, forget it, we're going to do it anyway, and this is our reason, and the people are standing around saying, wait a minute, I thought we had representative government. And this is the reality. They don't. And this awareness now is, I think, going to be the next truly significant political development in the world, when the people of the world living in what they thought were representative systems suddenly realize that they are not represented. What are they going to do? It's going to be some kind of a great upheaval, I'm afraid. And it remains to be seen what comes out of that. Alan Carlin's suppressed EPA report fits into the general pattern. Here's a guy who's pretty high up in the Environmental Protection Agency, and he was asked to write a report explaining what his assessment was of global warming and man-made gases, and to make recommendations what to do about it, just more of the same. He was expected to say, yeah, we got this big problem, and therefore we have to have more laws and give more power and more money to government. Well, he didn't. His report was, hey guys, we made a mistake. There's no global warming going on. Whatever global warming was going on was not caused by man's activities. It was caused by natural phenomena. And besides that, the planet is actually cooling now. Well, they didn't want that answer, and so they suppressed it. And they asked him to rewrite it, and he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. So now he's in big trouble, and I guess he's fighting for his job.